Okay, hello and welcome to tonight's Better lecture. I'm always excited when I come on here to serve you guys with this information. My name is Glenay. I am a California registered nurse. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. Despite completing only grade school, I earned a bachelor's in the science of nursing. I have a 30-year healthcare experience. I have enjoyed an amazing 16-year nursing career, working in highly specialized areas of medicine like medical ICU, cardiothoracic ICU, solid organ transplantation, pain management, post-anesthesia care unit, and cardiac catheterization. I have seen miracles, signs, and wonders. I went from gang banging with the Black Pea Stones of Los Angeles, California, to a seat at the table, colleagues with world-renowned cardiothoracic surgeons, immunologists, pulmonologists, cardiologists, and professors of medicine. And now, the founder of 2 companies. My first company is Nays Vision, a publishing firm, where I am editor-in-chief and have self-published 2 books. Yet here I stand, My Journey from Bondage to Liberty, a memoir, then Bias and Burnout, 10 Power Moves for Healthcare Workplace Equity, a healthcare business book. I am the CEO at RX for Life, a health equity consultancy and education agency. I help women confidently practice workplace rights and responsibilities, preventing mental illness. But getting to this place wasn't easy. I have faced a lot of challenges in my lifetime, but none as hard as coping with workplace discrimination within a major US hospital. Do you know I have never saw myself as a statistic until I needed help accessing employment rights? At face value, it seems so black and white that I should have that thing to ease my discomfort, make me equal, give me equity. But because of bias, the administration can't care about my health, my life, the destination of my soul. I care. You care. They see what is happening and say, I'm sorry, but my hands are tied. Or there's nothing more that I can do for you. The attorneys say that I'm being unreasonable. The pastors say that I've come so far in life that I shouldn't risk losing my job. The doctors say I shouldn't be upset about their business decisions. The friend, they say I should just let it go. But what does God say? Who will help me dismantle institutional racism? Telling my employer about my injury exposed my weaknesses, but I fought with every ounce of strength that I have, rights and responsibilities. I would not enter that modern day gas chamber. Only God knows what public health statistic I would have fallen into had I followed their ways. I am blessed that I follow Jesus Christ. I am blessed that I trust in the living God. And I am blessed that I wait for him. My story is dark. I know the depths of Satan. My story goes deeper than I can carefully unpack for you today. That's why I write. But what I will share is depression may be the result of workplace discrimination, a form of chronic job stress. It was for me, and I am not alone. For African American women, mental and physical symptoms of stress are erroneously examined, diagnosed, then medicated, leading to many diseases, including death and poverty. When we use our employers' sponsored benefits to see our doctor, we are asking for help to restore our health. When we patronize our employers' legal partners, we are asking for guidance to protect us from becoming just another statistic. We now understand that help is unavailable, which is why I've created a healthcare brand providing you, the people, with community, consultancy, courses, and literature so that you have your prescription for life. Today, you can get better health results than using your employee benefits to manage stress. So, are you ready for better? I know that I was ready for better when I was experiencing workplace discrimination and mental illness stemming from workplace discrimination, a form of chronic job stress that's unaddressed within the medical system. So what does mental illness, workplace discrimination, and medicine all have in common? If you answered America's public health crises and institutional racism, you'd be correct. What you're hearing from me and from this better lecture is new concepts and new information on conducting business as an employee. That's right, conducting business as an employee. Whenever you think of work, I want for you to think of adding value to your name, adding value to your self-worth, adding value to your community, adding value to your family, adding value to your future. You've come here tonight to hear my recommendations on religious exemptions for the people of God who are strongly opposed to being inoculated with a bioagent targeted to become a vaccine against COVID-19 or the coronavirus. And you're rightfully concerned because you don't want to do that and you also want to be able to stay employed. Legally, there are two exemptions available: disability and religious. The fact that you just don't want to is fine, but it doesn't fly in the workplace. Okay, if you're an employee, then you have to decide on what exemption you fall under if you don't want it or you quit. Okay, so there's just one problem with this religious exemption, and that it's being a child of God is not a religion, right? There's nothing about us that looks a certain way to be identified as a religion. It's a relationship, right? We know this. It's obedience and it's following your Holy Spirit. It's pain and it's darkness. It's oneness with God. And those are the characters that you need to be able to display at workplace, in the workplace, and at systems of discrimination. Being godly is confrontational. Confrontation is chronic job stress. Chronic job stress has health implications when you don't know how to alleviate the pain or when you don't know how to eliminate the stressor. So I said all of that to say that there will be enmity. Internally, when you do something you didn't want to do for temporal reasons, there's going to be enmity. When you don't do that one thing that you want to do because of fear of losing something, maybe your job, your health benefits, or things like that, which are still temporal, then there's going to be hostility internally. Even when you stand for your rights and your responsibility, there will be hate against you. They just want you to just fall in line and follow that status quo and just be okay with it. This is mental illness stemming from workplace discrimination. And it's a form of chronic job stress unaddressed by the medical system. And it's the cause of America's public health crises. In order to bring new ideals and concepts that are so broad and abstract, like like institutional racism, to bring it into focus, I will be using a prescription for life, a framework I have been using since 2012 to overcome workplace discrimination and institutional racism within the medical system. So this framework consists of 3 parts, and it is the workplace. We use that because it's relatable and measurable. And then it's the nursing process. We use that because it's practical and evidence-based. And then the Word of God, because He is final. He's the authority, He loves you, and He is the truth, okay? So yeah, those are the framework that we do use. I just want to remind everyone, little disclaimer here, that everything I say during the Better lecture is for educational purposes only. I am available for hire for professional health equity services and products. And then we can talk about what all I can do for you in your pursuit for health equity and health justice. So are you ready to get into some new content? We're here. Today is July the 28th, 2021, the year of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Tonight's Better lecture is Depression, Discrimination, and Care of the African American Woman. And tonight's topic is Claiming Religious Exemption for the People of God. So before I get into this, I just want to say that I have not received the vaccination. I left full-time employment June 30th. I don't take even the flu shot. I have been using masks at work, and I have been, easily without issues, just claiming religious exemption, okay? For some reason, I don't believe, and because of the push to get everyone inoculated fast, quick, hurry, that they're going to be okay with the religious exemption. And they're going to have to be okay, but I'm saying that it may not happen without pushback, and it may not happen without some discrimination against you. And that's why I'm here, so that you can understand how to navigate discrimination without it affecting your mental health and without it affecting your financial status and your ability to continue to create income. Okay, I know plenty of people who have received the vaccination. Some have had headaches, but other than that, I don't know if it's any long-term adverse effects to it. I don't know anyone who has died or been disabled from the vaccination. But then also, even with my healthcare experience and the amount of people that I know, I don't know anyone who has had the COVID virus and not recovered. So what does that say about me? I am just in the tabernacle of the Lord, and I'm just going to stay right on here under his shelter. But for a lot of people who are out there worrying and listening to the news and coming into agreement with everything that's happening in the world, and you're wanting to backtrack and you're wanting to get into alignment with who you are and whose you are, tonight's topic is for you. Okay, so by the end of this lecture, you will have learned some specific solutions for preventing mental illness stemming from workplace discrimination, some measurable data for employees to prevent health disparities, some achievable goals for becoming empowered employees, relevant health equity products and services, and the timeliness of partnership for our nation's workforce, employees who are often left alone in this whole conglomerate, corporate productions and, capitalism, to put it nicely. Okay, so COVID confusion. What you're hearing on the local news is a lot, it's hard to grasp, right? It's a lot of confusion, the way that they unpack results from studies. They said this, and then they said that, and then they get new information. They're still finding out what's happening. And so that's one reason why I haven't gotten myself inoculated with it, because confusion is not of the Lord. It's confusing, and I don't want anything to do with confusion. And then there are other virologists and scientists and, engineers who are being censored from their input, very invaluable input, that collectively should bring what is called an informed consent. Both sides are correct. The one side who's pushing for it, they're focused in medicine. When you're doing studies, they're focused only on their favorable results. Everyone else are outliers. They're not focused on them. Yes, they're people, but they're not focused on it. So they're not in a position to be broad with their release of information to you, because, out of every 10 that fall, they get one that's right. And they're like, yes, this is good. This is great. And we're going to just focus on this, and we're just going to do what's right. Never mind with everything else, because, there's medicine out there, people die, but nobody's dying more than what the average population dies, and people die, right? And then also it's like, well, they can go to therapy, if they're having some neural issues, and whatever the case may be. It's like there's somebody out there who can help them with their discomforts and their fall or everything. People want the option to be able to fully weigh what their risk and benefits are, and with the confidence to decline and to be appropriately accommodated in the workplace, which could simply mean continuing to wear a mask. But they're talking about, making you test every week. I'm not going to get into that, but, everybody's wearing a mask now. Nobody's having a test every week. So it's just always something to make you uncomfortable and stand out for standing up for yourself and make you feel bad. But bear with it, okay? This is what God means when he says to submit to me and to not resist, like whatever. It's whatever, okay? Just don't compromise who you are if that's not what you want to do. So after everything that I told you, I want you to know that I have 10 days of content, but only 60 minutes to share with you. There are more things that I can do, but there are other ways that we can work together. Tonight, I'm going to share with you the 5 smart strategies that you must grasp if you want to become free of racism and stress-related disease to living your best life. Okay, it's all about transitions, okay, movement from one state of being to a better state of being. Okay, so are you ready? I hope that you're ready. Remember, the disability and religion are reasons for workplace discrimination. So let's get into some content, okay? So, what are some specific solutions preventing mental illness stemming from workplace discrimination? I love this word cope. Cope. Remember that cope means to meet force with the same force until you overcome. Okay. I think that a lot of people believe that cope doesn't mean what I just said it means, to meet force with the same force. I think people think cope means to just kind of um, tolerate or accept what is that you can't change, and really are not discerning the things that you can change, and what it is that you're supposed to be doing to create change. Because when you're dealing with workplace situations, it's spiritual warfare, okay? Because you're dealing with policy, you're dealing with rights and responsibilities. This is not your uncomfortable domestic home situation where I would encourage someone to quickly get out of there, because we can't change people. However, in the work environment, there are rules, there are laws, and there are policies. And I believe that is the dichotomy between good and evil. And I believe that it is where God wants to use you. And I believe that this is where people end up worshiping the wrong God and falling into America's public health crisis. Okay. Now, I want to say about specific solutions is that when you know your role and you practice your rights and responsibilities, then you grow in your confidence, and you also advance the company's mission, and you also grow in um, personal and professional, as personal and professional leaders, advancing the industry, right? Because so advancing the industry, like me, I began to go through this situation when I was back in 2012. And during the same time that I was experiencing this very deep and dark systemic employment discrimination, so was Christopher Dorner. I don't know if you guys know who Christopher Dorner is. If you do, just type in the chat. Yes, I remember Christopher Dorner, the LAPD officer who went on a killing spree, and he was murdered, right? He was dealing with systemic employment discrimination. And then our young brother, Khalid Browder, out in Rikers Island on the East Coast, was also dealing with workplace discrimination. He may not have been an employee, but he was in the custody of employees who tormented him. And, all three of us experienced some very important experiences that had all three of us made it through in a righteous way. All three of us would be making changes within the police department, our prison systems, and healthcare collectively. So I really hate that those brothers didn't make it through. But I said that because, rights and responsibilities. And I'm not saying that everyone who experienced these things, they have such a high level of responsibility. You don't. Sometimes you just need to be able to take somebody and pull them over into another room and have a quick conversation with them and let them know who you are and set your boundaries so that you can find out who you're dealing with and move on. Okay? So assessing your situation. Sometimes things don't matter to you and it doesn't bother you. And if that's the case, then that's fine. You don't have a discrimination issue. But if you're tolerating things and you're going home and you talking about that situation to family and friends, and you saying things that's really valuable and important to you, but you're not saying it to the appropriate people, then you probably need a little coaching and a little help in setting your boundaries so that you can grow beyond that situation. Okay, especially if you're a protected class person within the workplace. I feel like that's a blessing for you. Like you being called, when you could think about things in the spiritual realm, you being called. Like Moses was minding his own business, and then, the flaming bush caught his attention. You're right. And then it's like, it was not being consumed. This is some weird mess going on. What's happening? Like you just like on holy ground at that moment. And so, you know, and that's the same thing with the workplace discrimination. If you are going through something, nothing else matters. It has your full and complete attention. So the quicker you deal with it, the quicker you can pass that level of testing of faith, that and move on to the next level and keep it moving, keep it pushing. Because opportunity, no matter where, comes through the form of opposition, even in the workplace. Opportunity comes through opposition. Okay, so you don't have to stay in the valley. You can get out of bondage. You just have to learn how to handle your business to receive your reward. Depending on your employer, it's probably not the best thing for you to do, particularly if there's some moral distress involved. I like to tell people that I've always been an excellent employee, okay? Doing everything that my employer asks me to do until there's some moral distress, and then I have to find the policy to find out what I'm really supposed to be doing in this situation, because I still want to be in compliance, because being in compliance protects my vulnerability. And speaking about vulnerabilities, organizations, like they get away with disadvantaging their employees for business purposes. So if you are not being in compliance with what it is that are your rights, then you can absolutely lose everything. You can lose everything. And when I say that organizations get away with disadvantaging their employees for business purposes, when you hear your manager or their manager say it's business decisions, and it's literally pitting a human rights or an employment rights against the financial interest of the corporation, you should know that that phrase is equivalent to the police saying, "I feared for my life." Human life is being sacrificed. This is why you need to know find your tools, know your tools that are available to you, know what the policy is, know what that procedure is, and you do that thing and you do it in good faith so that you are covering your vulnerabilities, okay? Getting the knowledge that you need and applying that knowledge will then reduce cortisol hormones to normal levels, preventing disease, gaining understanding. So you're going through an experience, and we're talking about health, right? We're talking about opposition, whether or not it is a real life burglar who has come into your space in your area. You're going to size that person up to decide whether or not you're going to fight them or if you're going to run from them. This is the same thing happening in the workplace. You have to decide whether or not you're going to fight or if you're going to take flight. Here's a little wisdom. If it involves your rights, you should never take flight from your rights. Never leave your rights on the table. Okay? So yes, preventing victimization is really that easy. What's hard is the mental and physical process of separating from the man, because that's what it's going to feel like. Separating from not just the employment man and the dependency of you getting up, going to work every day and living life that way, but also the man of where you are decreasing your flesh, to denying your flesh so that your spirit man can grow, because that's an inverse relationship. And that's why I'm here, to bridge those gaps, those gray areas, so that you don't doubt and that you don't get caught up under medical oppression. Okay? Yeah, I said it, medical oppression. Don't seem so surprised, right? And here's an empirical study. We're moving on into the measurable data, okay? We went through specific solutions. We're going into the measurable data. And this is an empirical study. 75 to 95% of all doctors' office visits are for job-related stress. Pre-COVID, working men and women were seeing their doctors for job-related stress. It's stressful to have your employment rights pitted against corporate interest. Capitalism is America's way. Okay, it's the American way. Capitalism is business. Business exists to make money. The problem is when business exploits employees, causing them mental distress and not providing them with the information and the support that they rightfully should have to conduct business, even if it's confrontational business, right? Because nobody should be in their feelings about conducting business. The employee then uses their employee benefits asking for help managing job stress. So pitting against the corporate interest, capitalism is the American way. Businesses exploit employees, causing them mental distress because you don't know what to do. And then you go to the doctor and you're still not provided with that information just you go to the doctor, use your employee benefits so that you can manage this job stress because it's business, right? What else are you supposed to do? Just to be erroneously examined, diagnosed, judged, then medicated. You have to decide who word that you're going to believe, Say, because we move on to say 75% of diseases are from unhealthy emotions, enmity, hostility, and hate against you, even if it's internal or external. It doesn't matter. Like, this is the mental illness that stems from workplace discrimination, a form of chronic job stress, unaddressed by the medical system. Okay? I know that you're here for religious exemptions to get out of taking this vaccination. You don't need me to claim that. Stand by your beliefs, know, trust, and never compromise your core value. Mind your thoughts. You do not have to take that vaccine for the greater good. But I would be remiss not to tell you information that fills the gaps of the lack of knowledge of dealing with workplace discrimination. Back in 2014, as I'm working as a solid organ transplant coordinator at Ronald Reagan UCLA, and I got that very highly prestigious job only after 2 exhausting years of fighting for my equal employment rights. I wanted to be accommodated as a person with a disability. I wanted to work with my physical limitations and be gainfully employed. Ronald Reagan UCLA didn't want that for me. And so I saw my internist, who is also an employee and contracted with my insurance through Ronald Reagan UCLA. And I asked her for help. And my doctor's response was, not even the doctors can get an accommodation. So many problems with that, but that's bureaucracy. And if you know me by now, I try not to point fingers and be argumentative. I'm very narrow and focused on solution-driven things. And being distracted by everything around doesn't serve the journey, okay? But I was sick because I needed some time off, and I was like, wow, it's my doctor. Oh, but she's an employee also, not gonna bite the hand that feeds you. Never mind me needing this, But that stressful situation led me to, become even more sick and even more weak and just beginning to fight back just to get back to working. I just wanted my life back. I just wanted to, be happy again and, be pain-free and work and travel and, date and do these things that made me happy, be engaged with my children. But it all consumed me and I ended up in the psychiatric chair. And so I sat with that psychiatrist as I simultaneously fighting for my employment rights. I'm crying and I'm sobbing to the psychiatrist about my employer's business decisions. And then I realized I'm sitting in a psychiatric facility talking about my mental health issues, and my mind was blown because then I realized that psych means soul. Psych means soul. So I took out those 2 years to consider my soul as I was fighting employment discrimination because I saw their ways and their data and their statistic and what happened to other people before me. And I didn't want that outcome. So I sat for 2 years to consider my soul. Are you in a situation where you need to consider your soul? When we see our healthcare providers, they should be providing you with sound information to protect your mind and to support your dealings with white supremacy. Dealing with this level of institutional racism, this level of gaslighting, this level of manipulation, at this level of business decisions may be new for you, but I have been here before. This is strangely familiar. If the workplace is the common denominator for America's public health crises, then medicine is the factor. As a Black woman who is a Christian, I cannot take that risk. I cannot take the risk of being ignored, further ignored by the healthcare industry or my employers about what my basic needs are and my unique needs are in the workplace. So there's a strong, very strong correlation between America's public health crises and the workplace. So, talked about specific solutions, talked about measurable data, and now we're going to talk about some achievable goals, okay? So as a result of the children of God becoming students of health equity, they make better employee health decisions when practicing rights and responsibilities, preventing mental illness and stress-related disease to living an abundant life. That is the goal. In turn, the organization reduced retaliation rates by 30% within 3 years. That's at least $1 trillion in savings for we the people, the stakeholders, and the government. Who do you know interested in health equity and health justice? Teaching employees to make clear distinctions between life and death when dealing with workplace discrimination is imperative for this century for these employees who are working during COVID time, okay? So what that means is that you guys learn how to close your gaps in health disparities, including suicides, addictions, workplace and domestic violence, homelessness, poverty, premature death, chronic stress-related diseases that require medications just to maintain. What I can't do, I can't promise you that there will be no suffering. According to the word of the Lord, we will all suffer as Christ suffered. But he will not put more on you than you can bear. What I can provide is information, knowledge, and support to buffer you, to mitigate you. You can borrow my confidence. You can borrow my faith, okay? Because we do have a choice for what side we suffer for. If you're okay with following the status quo, by all means. I know a lot of people who do. It's fine. It's not for me, okay? That's your choice. Some of us like privilege. I like privilege. I like rest. I like the promise of God. That's how I like to live my life. But it takes effort to get there. It takes knowledge and application. It takes discipline and fortitude. It takes forgiveness and compassion. It takes accountability and steadfastness. Mm-hmm. So remember when I told you that when I started that I have like 10 days of content, but only 60 minutes to share. I've already shared the specific solutions for successfully coping with job stress and what the measurable data is Following the status quo is not a safe and effective solution for our nation's workforce. Many of you can see and have already seen. How many of you have seen that I've already given you some valuable content? Some of you may be wanting more and want me to dive deeper, and I do want the opportunity to work with you. RX for Life may not be for everyone, but I do believe that RX for Life is for some of you. So here are some details for you. You can take the quiz. I will put it in the chat if you feel like you're maybe dealing with some workplace discrimination. Okay. That is the link for the quiz. I don't know if it's going to link, but you can copy it and put it into your browser. After you schedule the quiz and schedule your free consultancy appointment, you can decide whether or not you want to become a student of health equity so that you can move from the pain and fear of dealing with institutional racism or even just workplace discrimination to the pleasure and certainty of God. Get confident in your employment status and let me help you make your next step a power move. Okay, and we talk about specific solution, measurable data, achievable goals. So we could talk about the last two strategies now for becoming confident, empowered employees, free from racism and stress-related disease to living an abundant life. So according to the United States Department of Health and Human Services, despite the increasing levels of emotional distress reported by Black women, there are few clinical interventions designed to address this distress and increase the well-being of Black women in the workforce. I like to say that you're not alone. I like to think that you're not alone also. But I know when I was going through 4 years of systemic employment discrimination, I felt gravely alone. Depression, mental illness stemming from workplace issues is very isolating, very dark. And you're consumed by that workplace discrimination, like I said earlier, and literally everything that you have and everything that you worked hard for is on the line, which is why I offer community, consultancy, courses, and literature, all for your workplace, healthcare, and life care needs. How does that sound? That's great, right, you guys? That's great, 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 great. Yes. And before we discuss the last strategy of the timeliness of this partnership, let's put some numbers into perspective. The EEOC says that at least 100,000 people file complaints of discrimination every year with their agency, and that's across the nation, that the majority of them are African American women. It took 4 years for my case to resolve in my favor, actually. 4 years for my case to resolve. That's 400,000 people. What do you think happened to those 400,000 people? Some of them may have gotten $40,000 for, employment discrimination, but at what cost? Like that doesn't come easy. Not lawsuits and mediation and all of those remedy programs that your employer have. It takes a lot of mental distress and everything. Not saying that you shouldn't do it, but I'm just saying that everyone doesn't have cases like that. Okay, and then the LA Homeless Authority released a 2020 groundbreaking report that says that the majority of the African American people who are homeless are, the term is unhoused, is because of workplace discrimination and bias in healthcare. I agree. And then the jury is still out on the number of lives that's going to be lost during the study of creating this COVID-19 vaccination, and how many lives have been changed with the emergency authorization use. I just want to read something from bias and burnout really quickly. I gotta get my glasses on. So this is in Bias and Burnout. This is in chapter 8, titled Justice. And this is the section called A $1 Trillion Table. I want to read that to you really quickly. I said that everyone can benefit from healthcare delivery. One of those to be advantaged could be you. To reach health equity, take a seat at the U.S. healthcare table. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, published a 2020 report on national healthcare spending, including the $800 billion for Medicare. National health spending is projected to surpass $4.01 trillion in 2020, reaching $6.19 trillion by 2028. America's spending for healthcare will outstrip the gross domestic product, all the economic transactions in the nation. A major source of economic loss is the tremendous waste of fiscal and human resources expended in fighting discrimination and retaliation complaints. Oh, I still need that. So, you get that? Now you're wondering, wow, that's great, but who gives her the authority? God. God gives me the authority to do the work that I'm doing. You're probably asking, is my work peer reviewed? No. This is my life, my experience, my business. I know exactly what I went through and exactly what I did to come through it, which is why I created RX for Life. The framework to help others, and I've been successfully helping other women pivot and manage discrimination in the workplace since 2012, beginning with me. This is my first attempt at opening up this business to the public because of what has happened in 2020, and everyone is listening and looking for solutions for institutional racism. And I feel that RX for Life is potentially that place. And aside from God giving me the authority, and aside from me creating this business, it is literally my job as a registered nurse. I want to read chapter 4 out of Bias and Burnout, Confronting Bias. This is from the California state legislature. They once considered the collective bargaining law for registered nurses based on a disheartening review of our healthcare system. This is according to Assembly Bill number 1201. The institution, quote, the institutional force of healthcare facilities and medical group providers has turned against the interests of patients and healthcare consumers. As a result of the managed care reordering of economic priorities and incentives, as a consequence, licensed direct care registered nurses are the only potentially effective means for assuring the provision of safe healthcare services and patients. You know, it goes on and says some other things and lets me know that it's my job to prevent disease. And that is what I am doing at this intersection. I've made mental illness stemming from the workplace discrimination, which is a form of chronic job stress, unaddressed by the medical model, my business. I define mental illness as the end result of compromising thoughts, core values, and belief for any benefit away from your source, who is the creator of everything. And as a matter of fact, the CDC says that depression is a major cause for disability for working people. So if disease is the end result, then what is happening before the diagnosis? Chronic job stress, some opposition, some conflict you are tolerating instead of eliminating. And this is all because of the fear of loss and the lack of knowledge of what to expect. That all changes with RX for Life. You have many choices for healthcare. but none with the knowledge and the responsibility to prevent injury, death, and disease for our nation's workforce dealing with mental illness stemming from workplace discrimination, a form of chronic job stress. I am Glenay, a California registered nurse. Workplace discrimination is not always some legal issue. It can also be a role discernment, rights, and responsibilities, something for you to do. Take our quiz, identify your situation. A health equity expert is standing by to help you make your next power move. If you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. Until next time, if not, if you watch this on the replay, let me know what you think, okay? Put your comments in the comment section. Bye.